Most people will work their entire lives for money and still never understand it. That's the crazy part. Not because money is complicated, but because almost everything you've been taught about it was designed to keep you obedient, not wealthy. You were taught to work hard, to save responsibly, to follow your passion. Meanwhile, the people making real money, they're playing a completely different psychological game. And before you get defensive, look at the data. A study from the Federal Reserve found that nearly 60% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money or selling something. Not because they're lazy, because most people are trapped in a system that rewards consumption far more than intelligence. You think money is about math. It's not. It's about behavior, and behavior is emotional. That's why people making six figures still live paycheck to paycheck. According to a report from PYMNTS, a large percentage of high-income earners still struggle financially despite earning well above average incomes. Because income doesn't fix psychology. If anything, it amplifies it. Give a financially insecure person more money, and they usually just buy bigger symbols to hide their insecurity. Nicer car, better apartment, luxury watch, designer clothes. Not because they need them, because humans use money to purchase status. That's the real economy nobody talks about. You think people buy things because they're useful? No. They buy things because they want to feel important. There's an entire psychological theory around this called conspicuous consumption, first introduced by Thorstein Veblen over 100 years ago. People spend money to signal social value. That's why someone making $40,000 will finance a car they can't afford, to impress people they don't even like. If this is already making you uncomfortable, good, save this video, because it gets deeper, and social media made this infinitely worse. Now everyone's comparing their real life to someone else's highlight reel funded by debt. The average person isn't broke because they don't make enough money. They're broke because they spend money emotionally. Stress spending, status spending, dopamine spending. And companies know this. Why do you think casinos have no clocks? Why do apps use red notification bubbles? Why does online shopping feel so frictionless? Because modern capitalism isn't built around logic. It's built around hijacking your brain. Researchers at Harvard found that anticipation of rewards activates dopamine pathways stronger than actually receiving the reward itself. That means buying things often feels better before you own them. The chase is the drug, not the object. That's why people who finally buy their dream lifestyle usually adapt to it within months. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. Your brain normalizes everything: the salary increase, the new house, the expensive vacation. You don't stay satisfied, you just reset your expectations. And that's why there are billionaires still obsessed with making more money. Not because they need it, because money stopped being about survival a long time ago. Now it's about power, control, winning. And most people secretly want that too. They just don't admit it because society trained them to moralize money. You've probably heard phrases like, money changes people, rich people are greedy, money can't buy happiness. Sounds deep. Except the data tells a more uncomfortable story. Research by Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton found that emotional well-being rises significantly with income up to a certain point. And newer studies suggest that for many people, happiness can continue increasing beyond that, depending on lifestyle and freedom. Why? Because money buys something more valuable than luxury. Control. Control over your time. Control over your environment. Control over who you tolerate. And people massively underestimate how much psychological suffering comes from lack of control. Being trapped in a job you hate, living somewhere unsafe, constant financial stress, that destroys mental health far faster than people admit. But here's where things get ugly. Most people don't actually want financial freedom. They want the appearance of success, without the discomfort required to build wealth. Because building wealth is psychologically painful, it requires delayed gratification. And humans are terrible at delayed gratification. The famous Stanford marshmallow experiment showed children struggling to delay immediate rewards for larger future rewards. That same psychology destroys adults financially every single day. Buy now, pay later, instant dopamine. Modern society turned financial impulsiveness into a business model. And if you can't control your impulses, you will always make someone else rich. That's the brutal truth. The economy feeds on undisciplined people, every addiction, every impulse purchase, every emotional decision. Profitable. And the system doesn't need you to be smart. It needs you distracted. Because distracted people consume more. That's why financially successful people often look boring in the beginning. While everyone else is trying to look rich, they're trying to own assets. There's a difference. Poor people buy liabilities to feel wealthy. Wealthy people buy assets that quietly pay them. One is driven by emotion, the other by patience. And patience is rare because modern life trains you to expect instant results. Fast food, fast shipping, fast entertainment, fast validation. But wealth is slow, painfully slow. Which is exactly why most people never get there. Not because they lack intelligence, because their psychology was never built for long-term thinking. And honestly, that's the real divide between people who build wealth and people who don't. It's rarely IQ. It's emotional control. Can you tolerate discomfort without escaping into consumption? Can you delay status for ownership? Can you stop trying to look successful long enough to actually become successful? Most people can't, because nobody claps for discipline in the short term. Nobody sees the sacrifice. They only see the result years later and call it luck. But money was never just about income. It's about behavior. And until you understand the psychology behind your decisions, you'll keep confusing consumption with wealth while making other people rich. Drop a 1 in the comments if you've ever spent money just to feel better about something else. No judgment. Most people have. That's the point. So what actually changes a person's financial trajectory? Not a budget spreadsheet. Not a new income stream. Not a motivational quote. It's a single shift in identity. The moment you stop seeing yourself as a consumer and start seeing yourself as an owner, that's it. That's the whole game. Because consumers ask, can I afford this monthly payment? Owners ask, does this make me money while I sleep? Two completely different questions. Two completely different lives. And this isn't about being cold or detached from enjoyment. It's about understanding what things actually cost. Not the price tag, the real cost. Every dollar you spend has an opportunity cost. That $300 pair of shoes, invested consistently over 20 years at a modest return, that's a completely different number. Nobody shows you that math. Because if they did, you'd buy less. And the economy needs you to buy more. So they hide the real cost behind financing. 0% APR. Buy now, pay later. No money down. Sounds painless. Until it isn't. And here's something else nobody tells you. Wealthy people don't avoid all spending. They avoid unconscious spending. There's a difference. Spending intentionally on things that genuinely enrich your life? That's intelligence. Spending emotionally to manage feelings you haven't processed? That's expensive therapy with worse results. The wealthy person asks before every purchase, am I buying this because I want it? Or because I'm trying to feel something? That one question is worth more than any financial course. Because the enemy isn't money, the enemy is unawareness. And unawareness is what the entire attention economy runs on. Your phone isn't free. You paid for it with your attention. Your attention shapes your desires. Your desires determine where your money flows. And most people never trace that chain. They wonder why they feel broke, while their behaviors silently guarantee it. So here's what the actual shift looks like in practice. You start noticing your triggers: boredom, loneliness, comparison, stress. Every emotional state that leads you to spend money you didn't plan to spend. You start building a gap between impulse and action. Not because you're depriving yourself, because you finally understand what you're actually hungry for. And it's never the thing in the cart. It's control. It's relief. It's the feeling of being enough. And no purchase has ever permanently delivered that. But ownership starts to. Owning your time. owning income that doesn't require your presence, owning assets that grow quietly while you sleep. That's when the psychology flips. You stop needing to look successful because you're too focused on actually becoming it. And the irony, the moment you stop performing wealth is usually the moment you start building it. If this hit differently than you expected, follow for more. Because this channel exists for one reason: to say the things about money, behavior, and psychology that nobody else wants to say out loud. And we're just getting started.